that are making money and the black women that are making money in the culture are not really celebrated and chains and everything, right? To over accessorize myself as well. And don't get me wrong, I love gold, but I believe in gold. Gold as an asset that you can buy, that you can back your net worth with as well. But I get why a lot of people show their lifestyle, because people want to make sure that it's something aspirational, ambitious that they want to obtain as well. Right? And it's in our soul, man. We are very flashy ass people. I ain't gonna get it wrong. But there can be a black man that can make $1 million. And he won't be celebrated as much as the black man that raised $1 million. Now, why is that? Would you rather make $1 million or raise $1 million? I mean, you can do both. But what happened in our community is that somebody can raise $1 million. Sure, they may take a 3% fee off that a lot of times. That's not money they get to keep. It's money that they get to employ, right, into a business. But the difference is, Simone and everybody, most of the time we're not celebrating a person making $1 million. We're only celebrating a person raising $1 million. Now, don't get me wrong. It's nothing wrong with raising money. But I think that we don't have as many ways to recognize and push narratives behind the people that make money. But when people raise money, they get write-ups, they get damn near awards, they on podcasts, they get a whole tour of media that comes along with it, because there's this PR. Because they would rather you be the one that is selected, right, that go through their process. Now, it's different if you raise them from family and friends. But when you see a black man raising, which not a lot of us do it, don't get me wrong, so I don't have a problem with it. But they would rather it be the one that is selected versus the one that got the grit that go do for self. Because I know there are more black people that have made millions of dollars on their own than that have raised. But we put this raising money to such a high standard because it's not something that our community came up with. The entrepreneurs in our early days, they were making money, right? The Madam C.J. Walkers was just making money. She couldn't raise no money because venture capital that's not even a high percentage of money that gets used for these companies to have these large startups. And unless we raising tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars, it's not that important either. Evaluations happen in companies because somebody tell you that you're valuable. Somebody can invest in a company and say, "Oh, I invested at this company. You understand me? I put $100 million in at a $1 billion evaluation." Then all of a sudden they got a $1 billion company. It's all just made up evaluations and numbers. But then they can go take that and they can use that as leverage to go get more money and more money and more money. In the black community, because we don't get nobody that comes in and tell us that our company is valued at $100 million, valued at $1 billion. And oftentimes these companies that are valued at that, they have way less sales. So I see black companies that bootstrap, that get started, right? They have real sales. Right? Real community, back end structure, infrastructure. They got it even set up all the way. And as much as these people that do get help from the community, what they do is they take these black people that are brilliant ones of us, that have ideas, that don't want to have to go through all of this headache and pain of starting a company and things of that nature by themselves. They take you out of the community. They bring you amongst them. And they say, you're special. And because you're special, right, you actually changing my mind. You're different than the rest of the other ones. Right? They'll say stuff like, you different than the other Negroes I know, basically. You know what I mean? You one of the special ones out your people. And you start feeling different than your people. You start feeling different. Like, okay, maybe I am different. Maybe the rest of these Negroes, something wrong with them. Maybe I'm above them. Maybe I'm of a higher class, because what they're doing is they're separating our brightest from us to de-identify with the group, to delineate from the group. So therefore, when you see the successful ones, the boule, they have this attitude, this air that I'm black, but I'm of the special ones. And that those ones down there don't even know how to make decisions for themselves. So now they're not going to spend their money on helping them out. They're not going to give back to their community. They're not going to build schools and things of that nature and build grocery stores. And why would I do that? So it is another form of separation by choosing the ones that they call special. Then they got to go to the dinners and grab all the etiquette and go to the balls and, play golf with them and, be inducted into this private society because you're one of the special ones. So therefore, you actually don't want to hear anybody. You don't want to hear nobody on that black talk because you de-identify with this entire diaspora that as if you're different. You're above that, basically. And they get wrapped up so much that they don't even realize that that's what's happened to them. And so, you have to understand that. And then what ended up happening is some of these people are second generation. They're second generation money. It's a different world. They don't know what it's like to get it out the mud and things of that nature. And they don't have to. The only problem that comes along with it is they are afraid at the same time. They're afraid. And they're assimilating to get along. And they're taught not to make too much noise. So they're afraid to stand next to others who will be one of the ones that speak any truth and clarity and thought towards black liberation or power. So instead, they paint it with a brushstroke of black excellence. Let's just put some black excellence. Stop getting the Negro to want to obtain for more. Stop getting the Negro to want to have what we have. Why does he want the house next to us? Matter of fact, the only ones we will allow to be like that, a couple of special Negroes, but also the ones that entertain us that we can own and control. So that's when you get to the entertainers, because the entertainers are not seen as dangerous. But they are seen as dangerous. That is why the FBI, they watch entertainers the most. Nina Simone was one of the most watched entertainers ever because they understand the power of entertainment and the ability it has to transform the mind of the people in the way that you can utilize to shape culture. They understand it, but they got to separate them first. Some of them, they keep them so busy that they forgot why they got started in the first place. You get busy, you get money, you buy fly things, you buy houses and cars, you take trips, you hire people, you build businesses. And now what started off as a genuine, revolutionary, liberating movement in the soul, right, is now covered up by the busyness of the business. You don't have time to process, to really think, to be with your people anymore, to speak towards that message. Now you feel like anybody who does that, you're separated from them. They just don't understand. We get money over here. And you can't stop anyway because your bills. You have people to pay, mouths to feed. You can't just quit capitalism at this point. It's the game. So there's a rabbit hole sort of things that go along with this. You get into different political parties, you're in these circles. You actually will rather that this thing works. You don't want to tear down the system because you benefit too much from the system. So it's better that you believe in the system because anything else is too radical. And it's going to mess up your nails. It's going to take away from your time to go buy your new purse and put on your new Louis Vuitton outfit. You know what I mean? You can't go to Paris if you've been too much of a liberator. Instead, it ends up becoming simplified to one message and one message alone. Unless it messes up the money. And that's vote. You get 4 letters of power. That's all. That's all you get. And that message is not the wrong if it's coupled with power, infrastructure. Not lobby, but vote. Because at this point in time, we know that the vote is done for in a certain essence. The lobbyism makes sense. It was never a message of economic cooperation and unity, because you can't tell me if there was a campaign of all our brightest celebrities that came out, and instead of a boycott, they was like, yo, we're all getting behind this economic empowerment. Let's all put our money here. And they start putting their money in. Then we start putting it in. Then it becomes this big trickle effect. But they're contracted not to get behind anything that is too much of a liberator. It's not that they haven't thought about it, that they don't know. They're fearful. They have these conversations behind the scenes. And they say, And it's not new for our generation. It's been happening. Boomers, Gen X, Gen Z, millennials, beta, alpha. It goes back and back and back from Marcus Garvey to W.E.B. Du Bois. You understand me? To Elijah Muhammad. To all of them. They had the same argument, trying to figure out what's the best way that we do it. Do we do it inside the system? Do we do it outside the system? And I can tell you that they've all come to the same conclusion at the end of the day. Some people arrived there early in the morning. They already knew. Damn thing. But most people came to it at the end. It was always sovereignty. It was always separation. We love our friends. We have allies and things of that nature. But see, I'm going to tell you, man, power only respects power. When you have to ask power for something, it makes him or her respect their power more. Because they know the only reason you come into me is because I have something you want. I have power. And we mistake it for friendship. We mistake it, right, for friendship. Are they being nice to us? No, they being powerful. That's all. They know that they have the power. Because they know that with their corny and their lameness and their lack of seasoning and rhythm, you would not be in their house. You would not be signing contracts with them. You would not be working with them, listening to them, taking their advice, doing free things for them if they didn't have the power. If they did not have the power, our community would not work with so many more other people. We only do it, we only look up to them, and most of them are only in a position because they're giving each other power. Nepotism, father puts on a son, puts on a cousin, Jewish community puts on another Jewish person. You understand me? The white Christian community, the Republican, the Democrats, the progressives, they put each other on in these positions. The director puts on somebody here. They pick their own people for these positions. They exalt them, give them money and fame and power. Then we look up to them for positions that they were given. Not because they were special. Wasn't nothing special about them, if we're being honest. There's the people we know that are special. They're intelligent. They have a different intellectual class, the philosophers and things of that nature. The true creatives, the artists. But then even some of those is only because they were given a position. It's a Hunger Game reality. And so they make the average man or woman feel as if they're not that special because you don't have what the other people have. And the whole time it's not true. Think about a scientist. A scientist is what? Somebody who studies science. He publishes theories and ideas. Most of the time never even proving them to be true. It's up to everybody else to try to disprove them. Einstein, he just came up with theories. And I say just, not to belittle, but I mean that in the sense that he did thought experiments. Meaning that in his mind, he did the experiments. He thought of them, right? These are experiments that he hypothesized things, of course, that's what science do. And people tried to disprove him, and it made him a celebrity. Now, some of his theories have been disproven over the years, but he became a celebrity scientist. And I'm like, okay, what black man at the time could afford to publish his thoughts in academia, to get, that prestige and education and access in media at that time? Did it mean that there wasn't black men who were thinking at that level of science? Absolutely not, because we know that to be true. George Washington Carver was a much greater scientist that contributed to society, but he was not helmed up in that same position. Matter of fact, they cut that man nuts off literally and neutered him so he can even be around white folks. And if his story does not serve, you understand me, as a representation of black America in white America, I don't know what it means. Here you have one of the most brilliant minds to ever exist on the planet Earth, and we act like he ain't who he was. He revolutionized the world. And, he actually became a little obsessed with nuts after that, because he figured out ways to do stuff with the peanut and all of that we ain't know nothing about. But they made that man, in order to go to school, he had to cut off his nuts. Now, and we hear stories like that and it becomes regular day. But it should become more so a story of, you're so goddamn powerful. They fear you so goddamn much. Right? And who is it that fears? Power fears power. Right? They take a black man, put him in position, and tell him, man, that young man that's coming up, watch out for him. He's going to try to steal your position. Well, why is there only one position? That should have been the real problem. Is not the fact that there's somebody coming up. Is that you making it seem like this is it's only enough for us, but you about to hire all these white guys, but the black guy coming in, I should watch out for him. No. How about we take one of y'all spots? How about we make a whole new one? You understand me? Like, I'm not watching out for him. That makes no sense. We look at power. We look at who's ever at the top. But they get us to look at each other and to be in competition so that we can operate into a capitalist mindset. And it's destructive. And I think a lot of us just don't have strong minds around them. And I get it. Get your money. Get your money. Get your goddamn money. I mean, get all your money. Every single dollar you can possibly get all of it. You know what I mean? And have a great relationship with money and be abundant in it. Not just get money. I want your money to flow so abundant that you have no worries or concerns and you have an abundance of resources daily to exercise any thought and idea unto reality, to travel this planet Earth how you feel, right? And to be in such state of relaxation because you have your future taken care of. Get your money. I want us to understand that you deserve that much if you put that work in, right? But don't let money get you. That's all. Don't let money get you. That's all. Get your money. Don't let money get you. Money in this subject is energy. It's something that you own. It's something that it's already yours. But if you're not a good steward of money, it will slip through your hands. And I'll be honest with you. You probably care too much. And if you care too much, you will lose things as well. Because when you're caring, you're overthinking, you're making mistakes. You know what I'm talking about? So you have to adjust your relationship with money consistently. And as a people, we must adjust our relationship with money because money done had us. We came in this country being bought and sold. We were actually turned into money. We were thrown on paper dollars. You understand me? Like we were the money. They put insurance on us, and then if they beat the slave, they could collect insurance on this new damaged property. So understanding that relationship, but we didn't come from that. Where did we come from? They caught us in spaces of division, and this is what we don't think about a lot of times is, where was we at during slavery? They had this new show about King Kamehameha in Hawaii and the Hawaiians. You know, a lot of them was like my skin color or even darker. Do your homework on them for sure. I was in Hawaii. I remember visiting some of those spaces. And as I was watching the show with Jason Momoa, you see the